If you'd told Charlie Hayward he'd be the last line of defense between humanity and a prehistoric apocalypse, he would have laughed. Not the polite, I'm humoring you kind of laugh, but a full-on snort, possibly with a side of choking on his soda. After all, his big achievement in life so far was running a struggling dinosaur-themed food truck, Jurassic Snacks. But life, as Charlie was about to discover, had a wicked sense of humor. It started with a box. Not just any box, this one had the ominous air of something that didn't belong in the hands of a man who couldn't even balance his checking account. The package arrived on a Thursday morning, dropped off by a delivery driver who practically threw it at Charlie's feet before bolting back to his truck like it might explode. To Project Tyrant, Charlie read aloud, squinting at the handwritten label. He adjusted his glasses and muttered, "Sounds like the kind of thing you don't open without calling the FBI." "Maybe it's a free sample of steaks," piped up Sammy, Charlie's best friend and the world's worst sous chef. Sammy was a rail-thin guy with a permanent case of bedhead and a t-shirt collection that hadn't been updated since high school. Project Tyrant sounds like a marketing gimmick. Yeah, because all the best marketing campaigns involve cryptic handwriting and no return address, Charlie shot back. Still, curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed a kitchen knife from the truck's counter and sliced through the tape. Inside, nestled in layers of protective foam, was a small glass vial filled with an iridescent liquid that shimmered like molten gold. A folded piece of paper lay beside it. "You've been chosen. Inject immediately," Charlie read, his voice dripping with disbelief. "Who sends instructions like that? What am I, a lab rat?" "Maybe it's one of those TikTok challenges," Sammy said. "You know, like, drink the mysterious liquid and see what happens. Yeah, and then end up in the hospital and see how big the lawsuit gets," Charlie replied. He held the vial up to the light, tilting it back and forth. "This is probably just someone's weird idea of a prank." But pranks didn't usually come with courier delivery or high-tech packaging. Against his better judgment, and Sammy's egging on, Charlie decided to play along. With a shrug, he grabbed the syringe included in the box, drew up the golden liquid, and jabbed it into his arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Charlie glanced around, half expecting Ashton Kutcher to pop out yelling, "Punked." Instead, there was just silence. "Well, that was anticlimactic," he said. But as he turned back toward Sammy, a wave of heat rippled through his body, knocking him to his knees. His vision blurred, and his skin prickled like he'd just rolled in a field of nettles. "Charlie? Dude, are you okay?" Sammy's voice sounded miles away. Charlie barely managed to grunt before the transformation began. His muscles clenched, expanding beneath his skin. His spine stretched, his teeth ached, and his fingertips burned as claws pushed through his nails. The worst part, though, was the tail, yes, tail, that burst from his lower back, tearing straight through his jeans. "What the hell?" Charlie gasped, his voice guttural and unfamiliar. Sammy gawked. "Dude, you look like a freaking dinosaur." It wasn't an exaggeration. Charlie's reflection in the truck's stainless steel fridge confirmed it. His pupils had narrowed into slits, faint green scales covered his arms, and smoke curled from his nostrils with every breath. Before he could fully process his new lizard-like appearance, disaster struck. As Charlie tried to stand, a sneeze erupted from deep in his chest. What should have been a simple expulsion of air instead sent a jet of flame shooting from his nose, setting the truck's curtains ablaze. "Holy crap!" Sammy shrieked, grabbing a fire extinguisher. Charlie scrambled outside, his new claws shredding his sneakers in the process. The food truck, now half engulfed in flames, became a smoldering backdrop as he crouched on the pavement, panting. This wasn't just weird. This was freaking insane. By the time the fire department finished hosing down what remained of Jurassic Snacks, Charlie was ready to crawl into a hole and never come out. His clothes were singed, his tail was impossible to hide, and his brain was still reeling from the fact that he'd somehow become part dinosaur. The fire chief, an older woman with a clipboard and a no-nonsense attitude, gave him a pointed look. "Care to explain how your food truck turned into a bonfire?" Charlie hesitated, glancing at Sammy, who gave a subtle shake of his head. Faulty wiring? Faulty wiring doesn't usually involve flames shooting out of someone's face, the chief said dryly. She tapped her pen against the clipboard. We'll be in touch. Once the firefighters left, Charlie and Sammy retreated to Charlie's tiny apartment above a laundromat. It was a far cry from fancy, a sagging couch, mismatched furniture, and a TV older than both of them combined, but at least it was private, so, Sammy said, flopping onto the couch. What now? Do we call the government? A scientist? Animal control? Charlie groaned, rubbing his temples. I don't know, man. I don't even know what I am. Some kind of mutant? A science experiment gone wrong? Before Sammy could answer, there was a knock at the door. Charlie froze, every instinct screaming that whoever was on the other side wasn't here to deliver cookies. He edged toward the peephole and peeked out. Standing in the dimly lit hallway was a tall woman in a black suit. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek bun, and her expression was all business. Charlie Hayward, she called, her voice authoritative but calm. I'm Dr. Evelyn Blackwell with the Paleotech Division. We need to talk. Charlie opened the door a crack, eyeing her warily. What's Paleotech? And how do you know my name? Dr. Blackwell held up a badge that looked official enough to shut him up. Paleotech is a covert government agency dedicated to addressing prehistoric anomalies. And we know who you are because you just became one of them. As it turned out, Paleotech wasn't some crackpot operation. Dr. Blackwell explained, with clinical precision, that the serum Charlie had injected was part of a top-secret project designed to harness the latent dinosaur DNA that existed in all humans. Wait, Charlie interrupted, his tail twitching behind him. You're saying we all have dinosaur DNA? Like, buried deep down in our genetic code? Dr. Blackwell nodded. Exactly. The serum was meant to activate that dormant DNA and create a new breed of warriors capable of combating an impending crisis. And that crisis is... She sighed, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. A prehistoric resurgence. Climate change, deforestation, and human interference have destabilized ancient ecosystems. Prehistoric DNA in the Earth's crust is being reactivated, leading to the emergence of hybrid creatures. Hybrid creatures? Sammy echoed, his eyes wide. Like what? Like Titanus rex, Dr. Blackwell said grimly. A genetically enhanced predator with the ability to reshape Earth's ecosystems. If it's not stopped, humanity could be wiped out. Charlie leaned back in his chair, his scales itching as he processed this information. And you think I'm supposed to fight this thing? Lady, I'm not a hero. I'm a guy who burns burgers for a living. You don't have a choice, Dr. Blackwell said bluntly. The serum you injected has made you a dragon warrior. You're stronger, faster, and more resilient than any normal human. Whether you like it or not, you're part of this now. Charlie groaned, burying his face in his hands. This day just keeps getting worse. But deep down, a spark of something, curiosity, responsibility, flickered to life. If he really was part dinosaur, maybe, just maybe, he could do something meaningful for once, even if it meant putting his tail on the line. Charlie barely had time to process what was happening before Dr. Blackwell ushered him into an unmarked black SUV idling in the alley behind his apartment. Sammy, naturally, tagged along, insisting that a best friend doesn't bail when dinosaurs are involved. Dr. Blackwell's sharp glare did little to deter him, and Charlie, secretly relieved to have his buddy with him, didn't argue. The ride was silent, save for the hum of the engine and Sammy's occasional muttered commentary. When the SUV finally stopped outside a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of town, Charlie felt a nervous energy crawl up his spine. The building didn't exactly scream, top-secret government agency, but when the steel doors slid open to reveal an expansive underground facility brimming with advanced tech, he realized just how deep he'd fallen into the rabbit hole. "Welcome to Paleotech," Dr. Blackwell said as they stepped out of the vehicle. Scientists and technicians in white lab coats bustled around, holographic displays projecting 3D models of creatures Charlie couldn't even name. A massive containment unit in the corner hummed ominously, glowing faintly from within. "This is nuts," Sammy whispered, eyes darting between the lab equipment and a large tank filled with a green, gelatinous substance. "What even is that?" Before anyone could answer, a towering figure approached them. He was built like a tank, his muscles straining against the seams of his combat suit. A jagged scar ran across his jawline, and his expression radiated authority. "Captain Zhao," Dr. Blackwell introduced him, gesturing toward the man. "Lead trainer of the Dragon Warrior program. He'll oversee your integration." Charlie raised a hand awkwardly. Hi." Zhao didn't respond. Instead, he looked Charlie up and down, his frown deepening. "This is him? The rookie who torched his own food truck?" Charlie bristled. "I didn't ask for this, you know." "No one ever does," Zhao said flatly. "But the sooner you accept your new reality, the better. Suit up. Training starts now." "Training?" Charlie echoed, glancing at Sammy. "What training?" "Combat, control, survival," Zhao said as though reciting a grocery list. "Unless you plan to sit this out and let Titanus Rex turn Earth into a prehistoric wasteland." Charlie wanted to argue, but the weight of Zhao's words, and the thought of that giant monster rampaging through cities, shut him up. With a resigned sigh, he followed Zhao to a training area. The next several hours were nothing short of humiliating. Charlie struggled with everything. His enhanced strength made him clumsy, and his tail, which he was still learning to control, knocked over half the training equipment. When Zhao handed him a weighted staff for combat drills, he nearly impaled himself. "Pathetic," Zhao muttered, shaking his head as Charlie stumbled for the third time. "You're supposed to be a warrior, not a walking disaster." Charlie clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. "Well, excuse me for not being a dinosaur-fighting ninja on day one." To his surprise, Maya, one of the other trainees, stepped forward. She was lithe and quick, her movements reminiscent of a predator stalking its prey. "Ease up, Zhao," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "You were just as clumsy when you first mutated. Remember?" Zhao glared at her but said nothing, which Charlie took as a minor victory. Maya turned to Charlie, offering a small smile. "You'll get the hang of it. Just don't let him get in your head." "Easier said than done," Charlie muttered, rubbing his sore tailbone. Still, Maya's encouragement gave him a glimmer of hope. Maybe he wasn't completely doomed. As the days passed, Charlie's confidence slowly grew. He learned to channel his newfound strength, using his tail for balance and his claws for agility. Maya often sparred with him, teaching him how to anticipate attacks and exploit his opponent's weaknesses. Meanwhile, Jackson, another trainee with Triceratops DNA, showed him how to withstand blows without flinching, though Charlie suspected Jackson enjoyed hitting him a little too much. Despite the grueling sessions, Charlie found himself improving. He could feel his body adapting, his reflexes sharpening. But just as he started to think he might actually survive this, the team was called into the briefing room for their first mission. Dr. Blackwell stood at the front, a holographic map projected behind her. "We've received reports of hybrid activity in Alaska. A herd of megaloceratops, large, aggressive hybrids, has been attacking settlements near Fairbanks. Your objective is to neutralize the threat and evacuate any remaining civilians." "Megaloceratops?" Charlie asked, raising an eyebrow. "What are those, exactly?" "Think rhinos, but angrier," Maya said, grimacing. "And with bigger horns." "Fantastic," Charlie muttered. "Just what I needed, giant, angry rhinos." The team suited up and boarded a transport helicopter. As they flew over snow-covered mountains, Charlie's nerves kicked into overdrive. This wasn't a controlled training environment. Real lives were at stake, and failure wasn't an option. When they arrived, the situation was worse than expected. The hybrids had already destroyed half the town, their massive horns leaving craters in the icy ground. Panicked residents scrambled for safety as the creatures roared, their breath visible in the freezing air. "Stick to the plan," Zhao barked as the team disembarked. "Evacuate civilians first. Then we take down the hybrids." Charlie followed Maya into the chaos, his heart pounding. As they helped a group of terrified townsfolk onto a rescue vehicle, one of the hybrids charged toward them, its horn glinting like a deadly spear. Charlie froze, his feet rooted to the ground. "Charlie, move!" Maya shouted, shoving him out of the way just in time. The hybrid's horn grazed her shoulder, drawing blood, but she didn't falter. Instead, she spun and slashed at the creature's flank with her clawed gloves, forcing it to retreat. "Focus," she snapped, glaring at Charlie. "You can freeze up later. Right now, people need us." Her words snapped him out of his daze. Determined not to screw up again, Charlie leapt into action. When another hybrid lunged at a group of civilians, he intercepted it, slashing at its legs with his claws. The creature stumbled, giving the civilians enough time to escape. By the time the battle ended, the team was battered but victorious. The hybrids lay incapacitated, their massive forms sprawled across the snow. Zhao surveyed the scene, nodding in approval. "Not bad for a rookie," he said grudgingly, glancing at Charlie. Charlie didn't reply. He was too busy catching his breath, and processing the fact that, for the first time in his life, he'd done something that mattered. The town's icy streets were quiet now, save for the soft crunch of snow beneath Charlie's boots. The team stood among the wreckage, their breaths visible in the frigid air. The once roaring hybrids were subdued, their massive forms slumped in tranquilized heaps. Charlie's adrenaline still surged, but his body ached from the strain of the battle. He hadn't realized how much the tale added to his balance, or how exhausting it was to fight for his life. Zhao approached, his expression as unreadable as ever. "You held your ground," he said, crossing his arms. "Didn't think you had it in you." "Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence," Charlie muttered, though the hint of approval in Zhao's voice sent a strange wave of pride through him. He'd survived, and he hadn't gotten anyone killed. That counted for something. Maya limped over, wincing as she clutched her injured shoulder. "Not bad for your first real fight, rookie," she said, giving him a tired smile. "But next time, try not to freeze up when a giant rhino's charging at you." "I'll work on that," Charlie said, managing a sheepish grin. Back at the facility, the debriefing was brief, Zhao's preference. Dr. Blackwell praised the team's efficiency, though her tone suggested she wasn't thrilled about the injuries or collateral damage. Still, the mission was considered a success, and Charlie felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wasn't as hopeless as he'd thought. The hope didn't last long. 2 days later, alarms blared throughout the facility. Charlie was in the middle of sparring with Jackson when the lights turned red and a voice boomed over the intercom, "Code Red. All personnel to the control room immediately." "What now?" Jackson growled, tossing his sparring gloves aside. Charlie followed the team to the control room, where Dr. Blackwell stood before a massive screen displaying satellite footage. The image zoomed in on a massive, moving shape cutting through a dense jungle, its shadow casting a monstrous silhouette. "Titanus Rex," Dr. Blackwell announced grimly. "It's on the move." The room went silent. Charlie felt his stomach drop. The creature on the screen was enormous, its spiked tail swinging like a wrecking ball. Trees toppled in its wake as it trudged toward a nearby village. "We have limited time," Dr. Blackwell continued. "If Titanus Rex reaches the coastline, it could trigger a chain reaction of volcanic activity that would destabilize the region, and possibly the entire planet." Zhao stepped forward, his jaw tight. "What's the plan?" Dr. Blackwell hesitated, her gaze flicking toward Charlie. "We believe Charlie's connection to the dragon spirit could be the key. The energy he accessed during his transformation is ancient and powerful. If we can amplify it, he might be able to weaken Titanus Rex enough for the team to take it down. Charlie's heart pounded. Wait, hold on. You want me to what? Channel some prehistoric spirit and face off against that thing? Dr. Blackwell's eyes softened, just slightly. I know it's a lot to ask. But you're not alone. The team will be there to back you up. Charlie glanced at Maya and Jackson, who gave him small, encouraging nods. Even Zhao didn't seem entirely dismissive. But the weight of the task loomed over him like a storm cloud. I'll try, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. But if this goes south, don't say I didn't warn you. The team deployed immediately, boarding a sleek aircraft outfitted with advanced weaponry. The ride was tense, the hum of the engines underscoring the gravity of the mission. Charlie sat near the window, staring out at the clouds as his mind raced. How was he supposed to channel the dragon spirit? The last time it happened, it had been instinctive, like something ancient had taken over. Could he do it again, on purpose? Maya nudged him, breaking his thoughts. Hey! You've got this, she said, her tone firm but kind. Remember, it's not just you out there. We're a team. Charlie nodded, though doubt still gnawed at him. Yeah. Thanks. When they arrived at the jungle, the devastation was worse than they'd imagined. Entire swaths of forest had been flattened, and smoke billowed from charred earth. Titanus Rex was a living nightmare, its armored scales shimmered in the sunlight, and its molten breath left trails of fire in its wake. The ground shook with every step it took, and its roar rattled the air like thunder. Positions. Zhao barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. The team scattered, taking up strategic points around the clearing where Titanus Rex had paused to survey its surroundings. Charlie stayed near the center, his heart hammering as he tried to focus. Charlie, Dr. Blackwell's voice crackled through his earpiece. Remember what I told you. The dragon spirit is within you. Trust it. Easier said than done, Charlie thought. But as Titanus Rex turned its glowing eyes toward him, he realized he didn't have a choice. The beast let out an earth-shaking roar and charged. Charlie closed his eyes, reaching deep within himself. He pictured the ancient energy he'd felt during his transformation, the primal power that had surged through his veins. At first, there was nothing. Then, like a spark catching fire, he felt it. The heat, the raw force, the connection to something far older than humanity. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with the same golden light as the serum. His body felt weightless yet powerful, as though he were both himself and something more. The dragon spirit surged through him, and he unleashed a roar of his own, one that echoed with the voices of ancient predators. Titanus Rex hesitated, its massive frame quivering as if it recognized the challenge. Charlie charged, his claws slicing through the air with precision. The battle was chaos, fire, smoke, and roars colliding in a symphony of destruction. The team worked in tandem, exploiting every weakness they could find. Maya darted between Titanus's legs, slashing at its joints, while Jackson used his immense strength to distract it, but it wasn't enough. Titanus Rex was relentless, its tail sweeping through the battlefield like a wrecking ball. Charlie's enhanced agility saved him more than once, but even he couldn't dodge forever. A glancing blow sent him sprawling, his body skidding across the dirt. Charlie! Maya shouted, her voice laced with panic. He struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a gash on his arm. The dragon spirit flared within him, urging him to keep fighting. Gathering every ounce of strength, he charged again. This time, he aimed for the creature's chest, where its molten core pulsed like a heartbeat. The energy within him erupted, a blinding burst of light and heat that engulfed both him and Titanus Rex. The monster roared in agony, its movements growing sluggish as the primal force drained its strength. Seizing the opportunity, the team delivered the final blow, a synchronized attack that brought the beast crashing to the ground. When the dust settled, the jungle was eerily quiet. Titanus Rex lay motionless, its massive form smoking and still. Charlie collapsed to his knees, his body trembling as the dragon's spirit faded. The team gathered around him, their expressions a mix of relief and exhaustion. Maya offered him a hand, pulling him to his feet. "You did it," she said, her voice soft but full of pride. "We did it," Charlie corrected, managing a tired smile. Back at the facility, the victory was celebrated, though Dr. Blackwell reminded them that the fight wasn't over. The prehistoric resurgence was still a threat, and there were more hybrids out there. But for the first time, Charlie felt ready to face whatever came next. He wasn't just a guy running a food truck anymore. He was a dragon warrior, and for the first time in his life, he knew he belonged.